like noted there in the video, June 26th is World Drug Abuse Day, and the theme for this year is World Drug Abuse and the Trafficking of Illicit Drugs. We're going to be talking about this particular ailment or this situation that we have in our very own country surrounding drug abuse. And with me in the studio, I have Notedwa, who is a clinical psychologist. I have Mr. Richard Opare, and I also have Sylvester Compson, who is the Accra Regional Commander of NACOP. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
How are you? Good. First off, I want to pose this question to NACOP, Sylvester. What's the situation with drug abuse in Ghana at the present?
Thank you very much. Point of the theme for today's a World Drug Day. Actually, the theme for this year is the message of hope that the drug use disorders are treatable and preventable. Okay, that's the theme for this year. Okay, and talking about the situation at the moment, I would say that over the period, we've been normally we're able to get statistics where people have actually reported to these areas like Accra Psychiatric Hospital, Pantine area, at Kafu, and other private areas. That's where we get the raw data and we put them together. Over the years, I would say that every year the drug cases, treatment cases goes up. I would say that every year it goes up. And what is a bit surprising or very alarming, I should put it, is the fact that you find people who are in the category of like 15 to 45 in that category. That's most people who are actually age group abuse the drugs. What it means is that it's a situation whereby you have people who are supposed to be in class abusing it, so eventually they will drop out. And then also having people who are very, very active working class also abusing it. What it means is that with time they also stop working, or there wouldn't be any motivation for them to do so. I think that it is something that all of us, we have to look at it and deal with the situation at hand.
Note, I want to come to you on this one. In regards to the abuse or prevention of drug abuse in Ghana, how do you feel that we're doing at the moment?
There's a lot we should be doing. There's a lot we are doing, but I think if you go to the UN's message for today, you realize it emphasizes three things. There must be a concerted, balanced, integrated approach, which means enforcement, clinical aspects of treatment, and all this community mobilization. And we have a disconnected approach in so many regards. Right? If you don't bring it all together, then your net is not catching what it's supposed to catch. So that's where we have a problem, right? NACOP has its role, but it must also integrate with other sectors. Yes. Those like Richard and Co, who are recovered users who are now also into advocacy and some aspects of rehabilitation. Yes. All that must come together, and we don't have that. For example, he said, well, in the normal circumstances, we should have access to data. Now, in other countries where they do have this kind of integrated approach, you can get data on road traffic accidents that are due to substances. You can get data on homicides that are due to substances, which means that hospitals and facilities are collecting this data and disaggregating it and feeding it into this central integrated. You should be able to know the percentage of underage usage. Right? You should be able to monitor. Are people being arrested and prosecuted for selling to those who are minors and so on and so forth? We don't have these systems. So we skirt around a few severe or dramatic issues, a few busts at the ports of entry, and we think we're doing well. So what we need is to be able to bring these things together. Are we educating people? Are we reducing supply? Are we reducing demand? And how do all these things come together? What is the availability, access? Is it that easy to get substances? I'm sure everybody listening to us will say it is. You can send a 6-year-old boy to buy a peteshi. Nobody is going to say anything. Go to any of the places where they're showing football matches, right? And look at the average age and see whether anybody is being prevented from buying or using substances, even if I talk about alcohol. So when it comes to our approaches we are not coordinated, and we should be able to. I heard Mr. Amegashi talking about manifestos, and you see the punch behind it, the power behind that punch is what we need. And some countries are so intolerant of substances that when you get there, you know.
Yes.
Right? And it's not just based on religion, but they've set themselves a mandate that no, we will not tolerate, accommodate these things.
That's right.
And so even young people growing up know that
it's not something
these
you
things,
can go into.
there'll still be those who get trapped. But then that serves to send that clear, consistent message that we have zero tolerance to these things and they cause problems.
Yeah.
So that's my take on our position.
I want to talk to Richard now. Richard, you're a recovering user. First off, let me just ask you a personal question. What was your drug of choice or your substance of choice?
Thank you very much. I did almost all the drugs you can think of.
Right.
I began with alcohol and cigarettes. I graduated to heroin, cocaine, and of course marijuana. Okay. And then
now you haven't gone through this here in Ghana. What did you find the support structure like? Did you feel that along your way, at the point where you felt that you needed help, did you get what you needed?
Well, let me start by saying that my heart is so heavy. I'm in pain as I speak to you now. As early as about 4:30 a.m., I visited a few ghettos in Accra.
This morning?
This morning.
Okay.
And then ended up in Tudu.
Right.
And what I saw this morning, is something that I wish I had the right grammar, to be able to describe. But it's so heartbreaking, right? When I was coming out of drugs 11 years ago, the old faces, those are left out there. Apart from those who are dead and gone, and a few, just a handful, who are now doing well, who are in recovery now. I'm seeing about quadruple of the number that are left behind. That is new faces.
Wow.
Now.
It's like there's a boom.
There's a boom, right? And the question of whether we are doing well or we are not doing enough. I'll say that, well, I personally don't have the statistics to actually, put it at the right perspective. But what I can say is that looking at this particular incident, what I saw today, I'm tempted, I'm very careful with my words anyway, but I'm tempted to say that, or to ask the question, have we got into crisis state or stage by now as I speak? Or are we still have, a challenge as far as drug addiction or drug abuse is concerned? So yes, we are doing all we can. Some of us are into advocacy, some of us are me over here, he's doing a wonderful job out there. Mr. Megashi is doing a wonderful job. I'm out there. I've worked with Addictive Diseases Unit voluntarily for 7 years. I own my own NGO that is into advocacy. But I think that there are a lot that we have to do than we are doing now.
So much.
That is not to say that we are not doing anything, but we need to do more than we are doing now.
What's the state of rehabilitation centers in the country? Do we have rehabilitation centers? I'll ask you that, Sylvester.
Thank you very much once again. I would say that as a nation like Ghana, we don't actually have national rehabilitation centers. What we have is, as he said, Addictive Unit, Kolebu, and we saw it on the
Addictive Unit.
Yes. Yeah. And then we have
Addictive Diseases
Unit.
Addictive Diseases. Yeah. Right.
And then, as we saw it on the state it is now, and then we have, I think, Pantine, but it's a very small place.
Yeah.
And apart from that, we don't actually have any. You have this psychiatric hospital, but you should also bear in mind that technically, you're not supposed to take.
That's right. We have somebody there. That they don't necessarily deal with rehab.
But because of the situation, these ones, unfortunate ones, are normally sent there. So we need. I think we started with the advocacy to get a national rehab. It shouldn't also necessarily be in Accra.
No,
because we should be, at least as a nation, we should be able to have basically about 3.
One in every region should be right.
But for now, to start with, at least if you're able to have one in the south, middle, and then maybe the north area. So basically, we don't actually have national rehabilitation centers.
Note, what else is required in order for us to be able to tackle the drug abuse issue that we have? Because we are, restrained in regards to the rehabilitation centers. Richard himself, going out to the ghettos 4:30 a.m., seeing that the numbers have quadrupled. So yes, I mean, we were able to tell that there was going to be a fuel shortage. We should be able to tell that there is an imminent crisis in regards to drug abuse.
Right.
What's the approach?
Okay, we've played games with this. You said, what else do we require? I'll probably say another 3 programs because there's a lot to talk about. But let's just hit the low-hanging fruit.
Let's do it.
What is our national posture or posturing when it comes to drugs? Do you see? Because everybody wants to talk about those who have gotten severe clinical disorders. What about the guy who's using and says he's fine? What about the guy who's on the motorway now and is driving under the influence? Right? So we must have a clear posture, a message which says these things are hurting us, and they continue to hurt us medically or physically. They hurt us economically. These are people in their productive
prime.
I recently did a program at one of the industrial facilities in Tema. And these are workers who are moving the wheels of industry, and they have a huge substance use problem in that facility. Their chief executive invited me in to come and talk to them. Benny, you should have seen people owning up and saying this. They were going to bury somebody the next week who'd lost his life to substances. So we need a clear message, right, which tells everybody, young, old, whatever, that this is the position. And then we now need to look at our policies. We have some good policies, right? The policy enjoins us to have rehabilitation centers. We're not doing it.
Right.
What they have at the Addictive Diseases Unit is an orphan unit. And if I tell you the history, maybe one of these days, and you see why it is being so treated, even by Kolebu management.
Right.
Okay? And I'm not scared to say that, right? There's a tussle between the management and who is there. People are there on a voluntary basis, just like our Black Stars. If you pay me prepaid, when my units are down, my units are down. They're asking for money. In the same way, we need to push the resources, right? We've been a signatory to the Convention on Tobacco Control. It's only 2011 that we passed the tobacco control measures in the Public Health Bill, right? Yeah. Smoking is banned in public places. Thankfully, now a few hotels are putting it up, that you can't do this. But there are lots of things that we signed up to and we are not doing. And I think what we need is to hold the state to account for what it's doing. In other countries, Benny, policemen and other enforcement, they go to schools on a regular basis. They teach children. We are equipping them with the power to make the right decisions. And also to show them that if you have a problem, go here, go there. We don't have that here. We are making some inroads in treating those who have problems, but like you saw there, these are people in their 40s, 50s who are telling you, I gave 15, 20 years to drugs. So they are way behind. They missed the bus. Okay? So what we need to be doing is preventing. The Chinese have a saying. They say, first the man takes the bottle, and then the bottle takes the man. You lose control of the habit, like Richard. Right? So the issue is, what are we doing to prevent? We must change the environment, change access, availability, right? Change the mindset of people. We must have policies that are seriously. Look, you can drive under the influence in this country, and nobody. I know you lived in the UK. Will you take a drink and risk driving?
Hell no.
And say, oh, maybe they won't stop
the
me.
The consequences of
you dare not,
are huge.
Right? You can't even have an open can of beer or anything in your car. You know the consequences. Police are checking different things, right? We had a few breathalyzers. Did we ever use them for people to know that you can be pulled over and do the breathalyzer test? No. So we don't have that message. And when we want to prevent, this is what we need, right? Educate people, empower them, and then have the laws and the checks and balances that hold things in place, and make it more and more unattractive to use.
I want to come to NACOP. Enforcement of the law. Obviously, there are laws and regulations already in regards to the supply, the use, even possession of drugs. How are we going to be enforcing these laws effectively so that we can stop these abuses?
Thank you. Let me add something a little about the issue of preventing. I would say that some few years back, we used to have our main office in Accra, and then once in a while we pop up into the other areas. But I can see for now that in all the regions we now have offices there, not there for any other thing than to realize that the area of demand reduction is very, very critical. So most of all these regions offices that we have in these regions, what we are looking at or what we are doing now is education.
Okay.
We've been going to schools, and even from primary schools, upper primaries. That is what we've been doing. As I'm talking now, my team are in the Fadama area, that's the Chief Imam's area, the cluster of schools. Others are in other places. If you go to the regions, we are there. We realize that they are the vulnerable group,
right,
where people can easily, touch them, and then once they are touched, and you'll be surprised that you go to these places, and then the children, some of them.
Okay.
Can I just quickly just stick this in? You see, there are things that are practical, easy to do.
Yep.
In other places, they have zoning.
Yep.
You can decide that this is a school. There should be no place selling alcohol within
Anywhere
this
close.
range,
Yep,
and you
true.
can enforce that. You can decide that this is a transport hub. Within this radius, there should be nothing with regard to this. We don't do that.
Right.
We have alcohol substances available
In the chocolate
haphazardly.
packs.
What I'm saying is that when we have this concerted thing, and you know that I'm running a beer bar or this, the law says I can't do this, and the law will come and check, right?
Enforce
So
it
you can
again.
have offices, you can do this education, but you see, when you are doing prevention, these are the kinds of things you
Monitoring and
need.
prevention.
Lorry station, whatever, you can find it
Okay.
all over the place.
Unfortunately, I have run out of time, but I'm going to come to Richard
please
so that
speak.
he
Let me
actually- Richard
let me
finishes.
chip in one thing.
Sylvester, I'm sorry. The thing is, we're going to have to continue this conversation another time, but I want to finish with Richard because he's actually been through it himself. Richard, at this point in time, what is your message to anybody out there who is going through drug abuse?
Well, I think that we talked much about prevention,
Yes.
and we've not touched, on treatment.
Yeah.
But the theme for this year has to do with prevention and then treatment.
Yes.
I think first of all we need to have the treatment centers.
Right.
We need to equip the treatment centers. Kolebu need to be equipped.
Yeah.
So this is a wake-up call. We're using this platform to call on the authorities or the stakeholders to do something about it. But again, I want to say that addiction is a disease that is treatable.
Right.
The truth of the matter is that people don't see it that way. And in the various homes, they see addiction as a demonic induced condition.
That's right.
Rather than the sickness.
Yes.
So by the time they end up in Kolebu, for example, they've gone to
been
all
to
the
various
prayer
prayer
camps
camps.
and
Right.
all that. I'm not saying it's not good, but addiction treatment or management is a specialized area.
Right.
So therefore, it is not meant for just anybody. Excuse my word.
Yeah.
It's meant for people who are trained in that field to be
Professionals.
able to manage the situation.
Okay.
So you don't just take the suffering addict to a prayer camp because you think that prayer will do everything.
Okay.
So addiction, first of all, is a disease and must be seen that way.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Richard. I am sorry that we run out of time, but this is a conversation that we'll have to continue because obviously it is pertinent to the nation. So thank you all for coming in, and hopefully I'll be able to get you in again. It's been Note Dia, Mr. Richard Opari, and Sylvester Kumson. Thank you so much for coming in and helping us with this segment. This has been our health segment brought to you by Lipton Tea. We'll be back in just a few moments.